feel pretty lucky to be here with you in Stuttgart because I've not been here for quite a while now. Some of my friends from studying computer science, and I just learned that Sven did study computer science too, as did I just a year after him. I actually from Stuttgart, or from the area of Stuttgart. So I know it a bit, at least. So after traveling around studying Trier and then working in Düsseldorf, first at the Plus Mobilfunk, then Atos, then Capgemini, and after that with Trevadis I moved to Switzerland, and then I had a very interesting job at SBB, Swiss Federal Railways, and after a while I said, okay, now I'm quitting my consultancy job and moving to be internal at SBB. There I'm team leader for software test management and test engineering. And let me quickly introduce you to what challenges we are facing at Federal Railway. So this is a picture what 2 years ago in a workshop we tried to picture what will the future look like, and we as a means of public transport, how can we still keep our customers when there are flying cars or self-driving cars around? And our idea was, okay, if we want to be still part of that system of public transportation, we need to collaborate. We need to collaborate with everyone who is taking passengers from A to B somehow. So maybe we can find synergies with each other. And what you see here is a picture which, maybe Zurich will look like in 50 to 80 years or even 100 years. But that project team actually is working on ideas to be, ready in place, but 50 to 80 years from now, which from my point of view is a bit different when you, difficult when you try to prioritize targets that are moving around, and you try to plan something that is going to happen in 80 years. You might not live that long. And actually, have you counted how many of these, what you're seeing here is already commercially available? You have self-driving delivery bots. Deutsche Post is already testing this. You have flying cars. A startup from Germany is already delivering those. You have self-driving trains. We have them in Switzerland too, only for proof of concept purposes currently, but the software is already installed. Self-driving buses, the company from France is delivering them worldwide for 3 years now, and we have them in Switzerland too, somewhere. And of course, self-driving cars, not only self-driving buses. So out of these 5 things, everything is commercially available already. It hasn't just yet deployed on a countrywide scale, but we are actually planning in all our systems to be able to do so quite soon. So quite soon, not in 50 to 80 years, but maybe in 10 years' time. So let me quickly introduce you to the, not to the future, but what we are challenging today and right now. Of course, you can buy tickets. And of course, we have a mobile app for this, but what no one knows is that we have 50 more mobile apps for our business customers. And they come, of course, in different flavors. We have a web shop, and you still can buy tickets somewhere at the station. And behind all this, just try to guess how many developers are working there. 50, 80, 100, I don't know. Any guess? 200? 2? 10? Yeah. Also behind the booth, so such ability automate, it's maybe 10. But the whole system landscape behind the whole ticketing process are more than 120 different systems. So we have more than 350 developers behind this. It's not only this ticket system. It's the Swiss Pass. We have a Swiss Pass where you can digitally buy your tickets on this, and you don't need to switch. So what I experienced when I got here, I was traveling here with the Deutsche Bahn. Of course, I had my ticket, and this is not working when I'm going in the subway here in Stuttgart. And I was asking myself, why? I want to go from this town to this town, and I have to switch tickets and certain providers. Why? Why is that? I don't know this anymore from Switzerland. I don't have to care where I want to go to. It just works with one ticket that I have. And of course, for all this, and that everything is going to be factorized correctly in the back-end systems for controlling. There are many, many systems behind. Just before the talk, I talked to some guys of you, and this too. It's not only this, it's of course the automated speaker announcements. It's the signs you see on the trains and have in the trains, and the push messages you have and the messages you have in the mobile app. And behind this, of course, are some applications, and these are 60 applications, and only 80 developers behind this. The RCS, Rail Control System, is supposed to be the best in class. Deutsche Bahn is looking for it now. We've already sold it to Sweden and Belgium last year, and they want to be, they want to use it because of its flexibility and how we are forecasting how late the train will be, and can still, while the train is running, try to do things that it will get on in time. But behind this, again, more than 200 developers. So you see there's a lot to do from testing perspective and, of course, from team perspective, because these 200 developers are in 12 or 13 teams, I think, at that project. And, of course, as a railway, you need a lot of electricity, and we own 6 water plants like these. And all were built from 6 different consortia of different companies. And so, of course, we have 6 different data centers. We got delivered a lot of different software, and all of this had to be integrated into our single system landscape somehow. By the way, 98% of all the power we need, not only for trains, but all office buildings and stations, lightnings, heating, cooling, and so on, comes from water power. And Gotthard Base Tunnel, which was opened 2 years ago, alone has 3 data centers. Of course, for security reasons, but there are 3 data centers. The test cases print out that we had to deliver to the Federal Governmental Office of Transport were 2,000 pages of paper. And how many of you have already worked in an augmented reality project? None. So do you know the Microsoft HoloLens? Have you seen it? Have you already used it or see? Okay. It's working quite well. We did a proof of concept there, and after that we bought some of them. So now my colleagues that are actually working every night in this tunnel with their maintenance work, they just put on the HoloLens. The HoloLens immediately knows where they are in the tunnel, and it's like they could see through everything. So they could maybe see through this door and see, okay, here's a power line, there's a connector line, there's a data line going through, there's a sensor. So they would immediately know how to open which screw, so that would directly get to a problem or anything else. And of course, I don't want to write by hand into Word documents 2,000 pages of test cases. We have tools for that, for sure. And my boss 12 years ago said, okay, we are buying HP Quality Center. Who knows HP Quality Center? Yay. Which is now known as HP ALM, or 2 years ago it was bought by Micro Focus. And we have more than 120,000 test cases documented in this tool. Of course, more than 1 million test logs. We have more than 1,000 people educated in using this tool and trained. In our test department, we are approximately 100, internal and external, plus 900 from the business, who have been using this for acceptance tests in the last 10 years. And of course, my boss can prove every year that this solution was a lot cheaper than an Excel-based or Word-based solution. But there are problems, of course. When you're using a tool which is 12 years old and the supplier or the provider doesn't make big changes to this, okay, they migrated from Windows 95 to Windows 2000 and then to Windows 7, but nothing else. You're getting problems. Who of you knows the definition of a test case or a test step or a test set or a test package? So of course there are standardizations for all these words, but the problem here is that the quality center has its own definition. What is a test case and a test step and a test set and a test package? And the International Testing Standards Board says it a bit different. And of course, when you're talking to certain software engineers, maybe they have a different interpretation of this too. So finally, after many, many years, we had like communication silos. And this led ultimately to even people harassing each other just because it started some years ago with this different definition. And next thing with this old software was a colleague from UX just asked me, Andreas, what are you working on? Yeah, I'm using our old quality center here. Oh, what is it? Show me. And before I could even tell him what it is, he said, oh, that's so 2001. Are you really using this? And I immediately agreed with him, but I couldn't do anything at that time. And of course, it was lot. It cost us a lot of money because we needed to have it ready for 1,000 users. So my question was at that point in time, how can I make the users happy? How can I bring testers and developers together again? And of course, at a lower price tag. So I asked all stakeholders, so project leaders, product owners, Scrum Masters, the team coaches, the teams themselves, BAs, software engineers, and testers for sure. And funny thing was that all of them said, maybe you would have said that too, but me too. Okay, I want to write and execute test cases. I want to file bug reports and track them until they are closed. And of course, I want to have a dashboard for reportings. So these are 99% of all our projects. And 1% of all our projects, which is exactly 5, said, I'm using all of this. So nearly every feature that Quality Center had. Turned out, I visited all 5 projects. Turned out these were external consultants that were trainers for a Quality Center. Unfortunately, it turned out too that they weren't able in 7 years to give their wisdom into the teams. So not all of them are still working with us. So how to get a new software? Of course, one of our stakeholders was the tool administration team, and I asked, when I am going to buy a new tool and get rid of the old tool, what would you like me to have as a tool so you can administer it easily? And they said, okay, please go to Jira, because maybe you find a plugin for Jira that does the same, because we have backup restore installed and everything is in there, so we don't need to set up new servers, new authentication, authorization, and so on. I said, okay, let's go to the Atlassian marketplace, check our requirements that we have, see new cool tools. And after a while, we see new cool features, so we had to add them to our requirements list, and after a while, the list got not... So in the beginning, we only had 20 items on our requirement list. In the end, it was more than 100. But after a while, we had our top 3 products, 2 of which didn't want to install, and one that installed, and after 2 hours, it was ready to be used on our test environment for Jira. So after that, after 2 more weeks of testing, I needed to get the money somehow, and went to my boss's boss and said, okay, please give me the money. And she said, okay, Andreas, I have no idea what you're talking about with test management software, but when I'm giving you money, now I want the return of invest latest 9 months from now. Please stick to that. Okay. And of course, my boss said, okay, Andreas, I had many problems 12 years ago to buy this software. Maybe you can prevent destroying anything from this investment. So we have lots of test cases. Many people are already trained in that old tool. Maybe you can make use of that, but please don't just throw away the old tool until you haven't reached all of these goals with the new tool. So I calculated 2 business cases. One was, okay, we are sticking with the old expensive solution. The next business case was we are going right to the new solution. And currently, we are actually driving something in between. So I have the old solution, but not as many user licenses that I need. And with these savings from not used user licenses, I have bought the new tool. And then our collaboration started to change. And the examples that are now following, most of these examples I did not expect to happen. This is... was very funny for me. So we had multiple teams that were starting with using X-Ray for test management. And I went to all teams and said, okay, now here in Jira you have some more buttons, you have some more things you can do. And immediately the testers jumped onto this and wanted to see what it is. And even the software engineer said, oh, cool, something new in Jira, let's have a look at it. So that would never had happened with Quality Center before. And after a few weeks, after 2 weeks, a team invited me to their review from that sprint. And who of you again was working in testing already? Some of you. So you know one thing, we are, of course, writing test cases for the business, and at some point, business has to accept the written test cases. They have to review the test cases, that they are the correct things to test, and they have to formally accept them. And after a while, so after a few years or decades, this gets really boring for the business people, and they will refuse doing these reviews or jump out of it after a few minutes with some strange reasons. But what happened here in this team was someone from business saw, okay, I wrote a requirement in Jira with help of my business analyst. And then just a few hours later, some tester thinks he could add something to it. Okay, what did he add? Oh, he added a test case. So let's see what was in the test case. Oh, that's exactly what I wanted to be tested here, and just clicked on like, and that's it. So for this specific test case, there was no formal improvement anymore needed. The business colleague really liked the test case and went on. And it even went on with other projects that the colleagues from business started writing their own test cases or modifying existing, or coming with all those corner cases that you have only in production and would never came up before when you were just sitting in the project and have no idea what's going on in the world outside the project. Another thing was that not only colleagues from business, but the rest of the team was finally seeing what the testers are doing. In a project, I was sitting with a young developer, Ellie, and at that time we had no test environment, so we could only test on the developer's laptop. So from day to day, every day, I sat 2 hours on Ellie's laptop and were testing things. And she kept saying, Andreas, you're not testing everything. You're missing many requirements. Why are you doing this? I tried to explain to her, and at that point, I couldn't explain it to her in a way that she would understand. So maybe, it was maybe my problem that I couldn't really explain it to her. And then after just a few weeks, she said to me, Andreas, what you're testing here, it actually makes sense now. So for me, it was that moment where I realized, okay, we testers have never really told anyone what we are doing and why we are doing this. Another thing, as you know, in Switzerland, we have 4 different official languages. None of these is English. And we have colleagues that are fluent in all those 4 languages, but they can't understand or speak English. But the documentation of the tool, of course, was in English. So after a while, Claudia said, okay, Harold, I started translating the first paragraph. Can anyone help me? And then the next weeks, we had a lot of the documentation translated. Not everything, only that where someone wanted to know something. And it was great. So now we have, in the meantime, we have the translation in all our 4 languages, but only for these parts that are that are really needed by some of the colleagues from business. I started in the FAQ just with these short things, and after a few months, I checked the FAQ section again on that page we have on Confluence, and it's now massive. There are more than 500 entries there. People started voting and devoting the correct solutions and so on. And after some more weeks, I remembered what my boss told me about that return of invest. And I started counting what happened. And people already started moving from Quality Center to X-Ray without me going over to them and pushing them. And I asked myself, why? The reason is, one of the teams started using X-Ray, was quite fond of it, and said, okay, maybe you can influence the other teams. So other teams saw, hey, what are you using there? I don't want to use Quality Center anymore. What are you using? Oh, we are using X-Ray. Okay, cool, show us how. And so there was a team started to say we have now a delegate system. So someone from the team is a delegate for all X-ray questions for the other teams. And after a while, all those delegates even started to call themselves an X-ray expert group. And they organized a conference call with some other X-ray experts groups worldwide somewhere. I don't know where they had the context from, and invited me finally and was like, what is happening here? I bought the tool. I want to be part of this. And yeah, but honestly, yeah, they're moving faster forward than I was at that time. And they even created a dashboard. So, you know, for us testers, dashboards are really important. And they created a Confluence template so that you only have to add your project ID in Jira, so you have immediately your top key indicators from testing perspective. And coming back to that user switch from old to new tool, as I said, there was this guy who told me, okay, Andreas, at one point you will have to really show me that, that you really get a return of invest. And just to make clear, this is the concurrent user licenses we had for Quality Center, and this is number of projects in Jira using X-ray. So you can't really compare those two, but you can, maybe this line is a lot higher when you have more than one tester in the team. And he said, okay, at one point in time, I want to reduce these licenses so much that we can invest that saved money to buy this tool. So what do you think where we reached that point? Is it more to your left or more to your right? Where? 80? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my suggestion too, but it's actually here. So 10 user licenses were enough to save enough money to get a whole company, so a full enterprise license, unlimited license. For an outdated tool, yeah, great. And finally, a lot of the collaboration was enhanced. And so my bottom line is when people started to see what the others are working on, started the discussion. So it's not only the discussion with this tool, but this tool helped to see others are doing things and what are they doing and why are they doing it. I have a lot of questions. I'll go directly to that person. This helped asking more questions. This helped the people to talk to each other much, much more than before. And that in the end led to better collaboration. And the craziest example I have, and it happened to me personally, was I was in a project team. We had an old COBOL host developer, and he said, I don't need any tests. I will directly deploy to production because I never make any mistakes. Which is correct, by the way, but that didn't mean that the requirements were correct. So what we had here, Paolo and me, we had constant fights, latest in our planning meetings, when I thought what to do with the tests and he thought what not to do with the tests. And after a few months, I was on vacation, and during this vacation, we had the planning 1, planning 2 meeting. And I came back, and I was asking the guys from the team, hey, what happened with my test tasks? I've seen them in Jira already. It's exactly what I wanted to do, and even the estimation looks cool to me. And they said, yeah, we had the discussion, and then at one point, Paolo stood up and said, okay, you know, would not agree with Andreas, but I know exactly what he would want to argue here, and I'll just take his place. And that was, for me personally, the best and most collaborative team I ever had so far. So, around the same time we started SBB, our Agile Transformation. Of course, SBB has a lot of struggle being Agile, but there are teams where we really can, where we really get our freedom, where we really can decide what to do and how to do it, beyond all formal processes that maybe you have to do within SBB. But for me, it turns out that we just talked about it before. He went. Agility is a mindset and not a method. It's not something that you can learn by reading a book or going to a training, but you have to really experience it for a long, long time. It's like swimming. You cannot read a book about swimming and then go into the ocean and swim. And for for me, the same is true with collaboration. True collaboration, you can only experience and then live by it after a while. So a lot of times I see the people that know perfectly, we have an internal rule set for collaboration, and they can name you everything that is on that list. But as soon as they come under stress, they fall back into their normal stress behavior, which is not anything that's on that list. And it takes a lot of time to make that change with oneself. And for me, it's really important so the key factor for successful teams. And maybe I'll stop just here. And Sven said, now we can get to questions. But I hope I could tell you anything or something at least that was interesting for you. And we'll be here around for a while. And if you have any questions in the next days or in the next weeks, just call me or send me a tweet or anything. Thanks.